Hi, it's Skyler Andra. Thank you so much for joining me today while I read you Chapter 1 of Battlefield Love, the first book in the Operation Cupid series. "So what are you wearing, gorgeous?" the desperate, scratchy voice asked on the other end of the line. I glanced down at the tattered pajama bottoms and the shirt I had on. The smiling badger mascot had faded to nearly nothing in the 6 years I had left high school. Definitely not sexy, or the kind of outfit that would keep this guy on the line. Cradling the ancient phone headset between my ear and shoulder, I flexed my fingers. Time to bring out my creative side. "Well," my voice pitched to at least an octave higher than my natural speaking timbre. "Black see-through panties and bra." I threw in a giggle for effect. "Is that silly?" I was just waiting for someone to call, and I'd been dying to tell them about it. The man on the other end of my ancient landline assured me that it wasn't silly at all. I watched the seconds on the call tick by with the patience of the damned. "So, are you really a redhead?" he asked, accompanied by some suggestive heavy breathing. "I think redheads are the sexiest women." Again I giggled, twining a strand of my decidedly dark brown ponytail around my finger. Years ago I'd been red when I'd gone through an artsy phase, but that turned my naturally chestnut hair to straw, so I grew it out and cut the crimson off. "Of course I am, honey," I replied, stretching the phone cord back and forth. "A deep red like Jessica Chastain." At this news he sighed and groaned as if it pleased him. Wanting to keep him on the line as long as possible, jacking up his bill and my paycheck, I added, "My skin burns like you wouldn't believe if I end up in the sun too long." I launched into a story about being caught skinny dipping on the shores of the lake and getting burned in all sorts of unlikely places. The guy's breathing quickened and he listened for a little while before he interrupted me. "Tell me about your tits." I squeezed the handset and pulled it away for a second. One of the things I hated about this job was being interrupted. It disturbed my flow. But it was his chump's dime, or rather his $2.99 a minute, so I'd let it slide. "Are they big?" he demanded. My curves were cute enough. I had a tiny bit of a pot belly and my hourglass was definitely on the latter part of the hour. Although my bra size, a small C-cup, would have made him hang up, so I gave him the stock answer. In my experience, it hit the spot for all these perverts. 42 double D, I answered in a flirty manner. I got away with talking about having a plus-size model's proportions for a little while, and when the dude had a firm picture in his head of someone who wasn't me, but whom we were both willing to pretend was me, we got to why he called. Oh baby, he panted. "That's right, that's what I want. Give it to me." 6 months ago, I'd lost my reception job at the dentist office and needed money to fund my way through my master's in creative writing. I really wasn't sure what I'd expected when I applied for an ad for a sensual voice actress. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I had some idea. But what I hadn't expected was what it did to my voice after 3 hours on the phone. After all the moaning, whining and groaning I did, my throat felt raw and dry. I poured myself another cup of tea from my favourite teapot, a cute floral number which I picked up on sale at half price. Before I started work each night, I'd brew a honey and lemon tea which coated my throat, preparing for lots of talking, and also soothed it when it burned. Call me a bit of a collector, but I had 10 of them, teapots of all sizes, patterns and shapes, on my windowsill besides the potted plant I kept for getting to water. It was my kind of thing. Any time I went into the second-hand shops, I'd search for them and grab one if it caught my eye. I had a cast iron one, a Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast, one with polka dots, you name it. I managed to quickly sneak a sip of tea before replying to him. Ooh, that's just amazing," I purred. "You're amazing, baby. So good, so good." I glanced at my desk for inspiration, where I kept a pair of high heels I picked up for $30 for guys who wanted to imagine that I lived in stilettos, suspenders and stockings. A Hello Kitty belt stretched across the desk for guys who wanted to imagine getting smacked, and you'd be surprised how many actually called for that. Then there was the jar of Vaseline for, you can use your imagination. "Oh, you're amazing," I groaned from my caller, desperate for another sip of my tea to soothe my sore throat. "It feels so good. That's right. Do me right." Thank God the apartment walls were thick, preventing any noise from my apartment filtering through to my neighbours. It was bad enough when sweet old Mrs. Kissler next door frowned at me every time the mailman delivered a Victoria's Secret catalogue to my mailbox. Imagine if she found out what I really did for a living. I'd rather not give her a heart attack and endanger the delivery of warm, fresh and delicious ginger snap cookies she sometimes baked for me. I think I'd stick for my cover story of being a virtual assistant. Back on the phone, the guy rose to his climax, his voice getting high and slightly braying. I lifted my voice in conjunction to encourage him. "Ooh, do it for me, just like that." Yeah, it was repetitive and silly, but it paid the bills a hell of a lot better than the dentist office. I tugged my headset a little further from my ear when my client howled, then grunted out his satisfaction. Thank God. I'd been on the phone for almost 30 minutes and began to worry that my voice was going to give out. As he panted on the other end, I snuck another sip of water and wondered how long I would need to keep working for the rest of the evening. Tomorrow was Sunday, and if I made enough cash to clear rent and groceries, I could go walking along the lake. Managing a tired giggle, I cooed to my client, "Oh my God, that was—" "Shut up, I'm done with you." He hung up as if I'd even care. I rolled my eyes at the beeping on the other end of the line. It was amazing how weird men got after they came. Of course, that was just in phone sex land. My in-person experience with people after sex, even with people during sex, was distressingly limited. It made the job a million times funnier, and I'd explained the irony to someone if I had anyone to explain it to. Yes, my job was unconventional, but it gave me plenty of material for the stories I penned for my degree. I wrote epic fantasies with quirky characters, many of whom had sexual kinks like my clients. Not that my professor ever clued in, praising me for my subtly flawed characters and unique plots. If only I could finish a whole story. I'd write about half before losing inspiration and putting aside for my next big idea. That was never going to get me published, but heck, I had to follow my muse. She was a real demanding bitch, just not a committed one to see a project through. I didn't even get a break to grab a lozenge from my throat when the next call came through, the peals on the phone demanding to be answered. The tag flashing on the screen told me what each client had asked for. Usually the calls ranged from the straightforward big boobs, small waist, to kinky spanking and pretending to be tied up, or in need of a rescue. Sometimes they were seriously odd, like smoking and sneezing. The worst and most unhelpful descriptions from my employer were the plain old sexy tags. I liked to have to fudge my way through to figure out what the guy liked. By all accounts, the next guy was going to be a breeze because, in his words, he wanted to be utterly dominated. On went my heels and I strutted around my apartment in pyjamas, barking orders like he may or may not have been following, while also telling him I owned every part of him. Like the last call, it was another long one, but he hung up abruptly after someone called out in the background. Thank the stars too, because I was actually running out of ways to say you're a dirty, filthy pig undeserving of my attention. Saturday nights were always crazy busy, and I took another 3 calls, 2 hang-ups mid-call and one man who wanted to talk about getting dressed up as if he was getting ready for a ball in the 1800s. Pretend you're my strict female tailor, he urged. Whoa, now that was a first. This one had me frantic and sweating to find out what clothes from that era looked like. Quickly I snatched my laptop, searching the internet, and had a stream of results came back. For just a moment I was thankful for all the corny historical romantic movies I'd watched. My efforts kept the guy on the phone for another hour as I talked to him sternly about making sure his cravat was neatly knotted, his shoes had a proper shine, and his waistcoat was appropriate to his station. That was wonderful, he said, effusively grateful for my work. I'll be calling you again. Have a good night, I said, genuinely meaning it when I told him before he disconnected the call. Okay, that was one for the books, I thought with a grin. I had no idea I would ever need to know how to dress a Victorian gentleman. Most of the stories I wrote didn't require suits. Still, a warmth permeated my chest. I liked it when I made someone happy without them jerking off, especially when they came back for more and turned into a repeat customer. I took off my phone headset, hoping to hang up my heels and end up the night on a good note when another call came through. I frowned at the empty tag for a moment. That's new, I mumbled to myself, never having seen one come in like that before.